goalkeeper. The skipper. Defender. Michael Barber. Defender.
There are two types of major bones in the body. One is axial and one is appendicular.
Within the axial, its job is to protect and support the body. One example is the cranium,
A second is the thorax.
which is the sternum and the ribs. The vertebral column is another example. It supports the body weight and distributes weight all over the body. The appendicular is the movement part of the body.
It's made up of 60 bones that form the upper limbs. For example, humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, your 5 metatarsals and 14 phalanges.
Within the appendicular skeleton, there are 60 bones that form the lower limbs. In its leg, you have the femur, the fibula, the tibia, and the fibula, a patella, 7 tarsals, 5 metatarsals, and 14 phalanges. The shoulder girdle is made up of 4 bones. You have the clavicle and the scapula, with 2 on each side.
And the pelvic girdle is made up of 3 bones, the ilium, the pubis and the ischium.
The 5 types of bones of the body are as follows. The long bone, which is longer than it is wide. The bone is compact and it allows movement. An example would be the humerus and the femur. Short bones are small, they're light and they're strong. They're primarily used for strength. They allow movement and it's a cancellous bone. Examples would be the carpals and the tarsals. The third type of bone is a sesamoid. It's a specialist bone, it's not like any of the other types of bones. It provides protection and movement. It's enclosed by a tendon. It's not joined by the bones and it has a complex shape. An example would be the patella.
A fourth type is an irregular bone. It's a cancellous bone within a compact bone. It has a distorted shape. Its jobs are to protect and support and create anchor sites for muscles. An example is a coccyx within the vertebrae.
The fifth type of bone is the flat bone. This provides sites for muscle attachment. It's surrounded by compact bone, so it's stronger. They're slightly curved. It's made up of cancellous bone. They are used for protection and strength. And 3 examples would be the cranium, the sternum and the scapula.
Okay, so this one is about the vertebral column. The vertebral column consists of 33 irregular bones, which is the vertebrae. The vertebrae is 40% of a person's overall height.
Between each vertebrae there's very little movement, like that. Doesn't move a lot. But a great degree of flexibility as a whole.
It protects the spinal cord, supports the rib cage to give your body more shape, and it supports your body weight through the lumbar region.
In the thoracic region, it offers attachment for muscles around your core, and the intervertebral discs absorb the shock between the vertebrae and distributes impact. As I now demonstrate in Risler, the cervical part is made up of 7 vertebrae in here. The thoracic is 12 vertebrae in here. The lumbar is down here, which is made up of 5 vertebrae. The sacrum is 5 down here, and then the coccyx is 4. But within the sacrum and coccyx, they're all fused together, so there's no movement available.
That is the vertebral column.
There are 5 functions of the skeletal system. The first one is support. Our bones provide the strength that we need to function adequately, just to do things like walking and running. It also gives the body a good shape and a good posture. Thirdly, it also supports the framework for the soft tissues of the body. The second function is protection. The bones of your skeleton surround and protect vital organs of the body. For example, your skull protects your brain, your thorax protects the heart and the lungs, and the pelvis protects the abdominal and reproductive organs.
Parts of the skeleton provide a surface for skeletal muscles to attach to. This gives the third function of movement. Tendons attach muscles to bone, providing leverage. Types of joint determines type of movement possible, and ligaments attach muscles to bone to bone. The fourth one is source of red blood cell production. Blood vessels through the centre of your bones and are stored within them is bone marrow. The marrow of long bones continually produce red and white blood cells, which are essential as large number of blood cells are needed every single minute.
The fifth function of the skeletal system is storage of minerals. This is essential for bone growth and maintenance of the bones. Also, the minerals that are stored can be released into the bloodstream as required.
There are 3 types of joints. You have a fixed joint, or also known as a fibrous joint. It allows very little movement and is composed of fibrous or dense connective tissue. Structures of the skull are essentially immovable joints. The cranium is an example of that. The second one is cartilaginous joints, or slightly movable. They allow slight movement, and the ends of bones are covered in articular or hyaline cartilage, which reduces the friction between them. The 2 bones are separated by white fibrocartilage, which is capable of absorbing the energy and acting as a shock absorber. Slight movement is allowed because of the cartilage compressing. This is an example in the vertebrae.
The third type of joint is synovial joints. There are 6 types of synovial joints. One is saddle. This is where a concave and convex surface are together. The movement occurs backwards and forwards or side to side, and it permits all types of motion apart from rotation. A second type is hinge. This only permits movement on one plane, which is flexion and extension. It's made of strong ligaments which are covered with cartilage. Synovial fluid surrounds, lubricating to allow it to move. An example is your elbow, knee and knuckles.
Carrying on from Michael Farmer on the synovial joints, ball and socket is another one. The ball and socket is a round end of a bone that fits into a cup-shaped socket. It allows movement in all directions, so it allows flexion, extension, adduction, abduction, internal and external rotation. Another synovial joint is ellipsoid. It's a modified version of the ball and socket. There's a bump on one side that sits in the hollow formed in another. Ligaments often prevent the rotation, for example the wrist joint.
One of the final parts is a gliding joint. This allows movement over one flat surface. It's very restricted by ligaments, and examples are in the carpals, the tarsals and the wrists and the ankles.
The final type of synovial joint is a pivot. This is when a ring of one bone fits into another. It allows a controlled rotational movement. An example of this is when the vertebrae rotates.
Things.
So these are all the major muscles that form the body. The first one is the bicep, located in the inside upper arm, and its function is that it flexes the lower arm. The tricep is located on the outside of the upper arm, and it involves extension of the lower arm. The deltoid is located here, which is the caps of the shoulder. Its function is it abducts, flexes and extends the upper arm. The pectorals are the large chest muscles that are located here. It's responsible for the abduction, flexion and extension of the upper arm.
We then have the rectus abdominis, which is known as the core muscles or the six-pack. Its function is to flex and rotate the lumbar region of the body. Then you have the quadriceps, which is made up of 4 different parts. You have the rectus femoris, the vastus lateralis, the vastus medialis and the vastus intermedialis. Their job is to extend the lower leg and flex the thigh. It's located on top of your upper leg. Next you have the hamstring, which is made up of 3 different parts. The seminum brachiosus, the semina dionysus and the biceps femoris. Its job is to flex the lower leg and flex the thigh. It's located on the back of the thigh.
The next one is the gastrocnemius. This is located on the back of your lower leg, the large calf muscle. Its function is to create plantar flexion and flex the knee. Then we have the soleus, which is the bottom part of your gastrocnemius, which also creates plantar flexion. We have the tibialis anterior, which is on your front of your lower leg, where your tibia is, and this forms dorsiflexion of the foot. The next one is we have erector spinae, which is the long muscle running either side of your spine. This creates extension of your spine.
We have the teres major, which rotates and abducts the humerus. It's located between your scapula and your humerus. We have the trapezius, which is on the back of your neck and the back of your back. It elevates and depresses your scapula, so that movement.
The latissimus dorsi is located here. It is the large triangular muscle at the top of the back. That's the trapezius, but I will correct my mistake and I will say it's the large muscle covering the back of the lower ribs. The function of it is it extends and abducts the lower arm. The obliques, which are located on the waist, their function is the lateral flexion of the trunk. And the gluteus maximus is a large muscle on the buttocks, and its function is it extends the thigh.
There are 3 types of muscle in the body. The first one is skeletal muscle, which is 100% voluntary. It's always under your conscious control. Under a microscope it appears to have a striped appearance, and examples of your biceps and quads when you're moving around.
The second type of muscle is known as the smooth muscle. This is involuntary and works unconsciously. The function of the smooth muscle are under control of the nervous system. They're located in the walls of the digestive system and the blood vessels. The smooth muscles help regulate digestion and the blood pressure.
The third type of muscle is the cardiac muscle. This is found only in the walls of your heart. It works continuously, so it's non-stop. It is also involuntary, so you're not controlling it consciously. It's made up of a specialised type of striated tissue that has its own blood supply. Contractions help force blood around your body, and one contraction and relaxation of the heart is one heartbeat.
The muscular system is what we're now going to talk about. When a muscle contracts, it pulls the bone, which causes the movement. The bones act like levers, and the joint is the fulcrum. Strength of a contraction depends on the number of fibres being used. So the stronger the contraction, the more fibres are being contracted. Muscles are assembled in groups called antagonistic muscle pairs, and they act only by contracting and pulling. They cannot and do not push. And the agonist in this movement is what shortens and is the prime mover. For example, the bicep in a bicep curl. The antagonist relaxes and is the opposite to the prime mover. For example, the tricep in a bicep curl. Synergists are the muscles that work together to allow the agonist to work more effectively. This sustain the correct position and have the body in the correct position to have the most advantageous position. Fixators stop the excess movement and hold the body in correct stability and position of the origin. Types of contraction, there's 4 different types of them, which Mark is now going to talk about.
The first one is an isometric contraction. This is when the length of contraction and angle of the joint does not change. For example, the plank when you're engaged in a static position. The second is a concentric movement, when the muscles contract and shorten against a resistance, for example a bicep curl. A third one is the eccentric contraction. This is a controlled movement of a muscle after acting against a resistance, for example when your arm is straight after you've done a bicep curl. And the fourth one is a isokinetic, which is when your body is at a constant speed of contractions, for example breaststroke when you're swimming.
We're now going to analyse the sporting movement of kicking a football, as demonstrated by myself. As the standing leg hits the floor, there is an extension of the knee joint which is caused by the quadriceps.
In the kicking leg, the hamstring causes flexion of the knee joint.
At this point, the gluteus maximus causes extension at the hip joint.
Also on the kicking leg, if you notice, the ankle demonstrates plantar flexion, which is caused by the soleus and gastrocnemius.
Now, if we look at the left shoulder, there is abduction being caused by the deltoid.
Also on that same shoulder, there is an outward medial rotation of the shoulder. There is also an extension of the elbow joint caused by the tricep.
On the kicking leg, you have the origin and insertion. The origin being the pelvic girdle. This is the part of the body where the prime mover attaches to but doesn't move. The static bone. The insertion is the tibia, which is where the prime mover attaches to and moves.
If you then move on to the calf, the origin of the movement is the tarsals and the insertion the femur.
It's very important to know that the insertion always moves towards the origin.
It's on the slower thing. Now we will look at the after kick frame.
In this frame, as continued from before the kick, there is plantar flexion at the kicking leg ankle, which is still caused by the gastrocnemius.
There is also extension at the knee caused by the quadricep.
There is flexion at the hip joint, which is caused by the rectus abdominis.
On the standing leg, there's a slight flexion of the hip joint, which is still caused by the rectus abdominis.
The knee joint is slightly flexed to support your body weight.
On the right shoulder, there is an abduction and outward medial rotation.
And there's also an abduction of the shoulder girdle.
And lastly, the elbow joint is extended.
On the left shoulder, there is a adduction causing the arm to come inwards.
This has been our sporting movement.
In this video, I am doing a weighted bicep curl. On the upwards phase of the movement, it's a concentric contraction, which is where the muscle contracts and shortens against a resistance. In this video, it's showing a flexion of the elbow joint caused by the bicep. On the downwards phase, it's an eccentric contraction, which is a controlled movement of a muscle after acting against a resistance, and that's an extension at the elbow joint caused by the tricep.
In this final part of the assignment, we will look at how you can train your muscular system to improve these areas and how it can benefit your sport performance.
So for example in football, you've got the fast twitch fibre type. To improve this, you could do sprint tests like the 30-metre sprint. Also for power, you could do squat jumps. The benefits this would have for the sprinting, you'd be able to beat an opponent, so if you're a winger you could beat a fullback. And for the power, the benefits would be you could jump higher, so win headers from set pieces. Also, another fibre type is a slow twitch. To improve the slow twitch, you do the cardiovascular fitness. So, for example, you could do the Cooper run. The benefits this would have is you have higher intensity throughout 90 minutes.
So in football, you've got to use both fast twitch and slow twitch. Whereas in snooker, it's mostly slow twitch fibres. So you've used in balance and stability. So if you to train your core, you're able to keep more balanced and get more precise shots. And to do this, you do sit-ups and all core exercises like Russian twists, etc.
All these exercises will help you to improve your muscular system, which will further improve your performance of whatever sport you play.
Love you, Lee.